we have Honorable Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, Honorable Union Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Petroleum and Natural Gas, Government of India. And the moderator of this session will be Ms. Shivani Gupta, Senior Associate Editor, CNN News 18. माननीय केंद्रीय मंत्री श्रीमान हरदीप सिंह पुरी जी को आप सबकी तालियों के साथ मंच पर आमंत्रित कर रही हूं। अपने विभाग को लंबे समय तक संभालने का उन्होंने एक रिकॉर्ड बनाया है और जिस गंभीरता के साथ, जिस कुशलता के साथ वे निर्णय लेते हैं और उन निर्णयों का अनुपालन सुनिश्चित करते हैं, वो सभी के लिए अनुकरणीय है। मैं निवेदन करती हूं श्री विजय दर्डा जी से, चेयरमैन लोकमत समूह, की इस मंच पर माननीय केंद्रीय मंत्री श्रीमान हरदीप सिंह पुरी जी का पुष्पगुच्छ देकर स्वागत करें और साथ ही प्रखर पत्रकार शिवानी गुप्ता जी का भी स्वागत करें। Honorable Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji is well known for his thoughtfulness, calm and composure, and Shivani Gupta ji is an expert of many fields, so it will be interesting to witness this session and be a part of it. Shivani ji, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Honorable Minister, Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs for being with us. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you. The overarching theme that we're discussing today is Indian democracy and how mature have we become as an Indian democracy. As we celebrate 75 years of our independence and we celebrate Amrit Kal, we look at the next 25 years as India's decades and the next century as India's century. A lot of people, Mr. Puri, would be wondering that if the temple of democracy, which is Parliament, doesn't function, this is what has been discussed in news. This is what citizens talk about. If the temple of democracy, which is Parliament, doesn't function most often, as we've seen, for example, in the current budget session resuming, then is Indian democracy functioning?
Thank you very much, Shivani ji. Let me start by thanking you for describing me, or somebody was describing me as a calm and composed individual. I've been described variously in the past, but very, very seldom only as being a very calm person. Would I judge Indian democracy by what is happening in Parliament today? That's a question. And I don't think that question can be answered in its entirety without one or two explanatory notes. Indian democracy is perhaps, not perhaps, it is the world's largest democracy. It is also the world's oldest democracy. We had democratic institutions here thousands of years earlier. We are only a very young, independent country, and moving ahead to 2047, when we will be celebrating 100 years as an independent country, that is only a small percentage of our overall existence. We are trying to do several things simultaneously. We are a robust democracy. We are a somewhat loud democracy. But democracy produces strong institutions, which I believe we have, and Parliament is one of them. The others being the free press. I mean, just imagine you are having a conclave and I see a series of important political people like my friend sitting here, the previous minister. We all show up because we take the press seriously. But there are some people who, by virtue of the democratic ethos and what results the elections throw up, end up not having even 10% threshold of seats in the lower house to be called or to be formally designated as a leader of opposition. In both houses, they don't have the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha put together, they don't reach a figure of 100. They say that their voice is not heard. I was present in the House when the Honorable President addressed both houses of Parliament. This particular gentleman who goes to a foreign country says that he is not heard. He spoke for 42 minutes. Now maybe he's got selective amnesia, that he doesn't remember his 42-minute speech. Here is a gentleman who goes abroad and decries the absence of democracy. I don't know whether he was born in 1975 or not. That is the only instance I know of where in the history of India, democracy was killed brutally. Civil liberties were suspended, freedom of speech was removed, opposition leaders were locked up. That's the only instance. Who was in power in 1975? Put that aside. A previous government to which this young leader who goes and makes an issue of democracy outside our shores.
You're not naming him.
No, I'll name him in a minute. I have no hesitation in naming him. But I think you don't even need to leave it to anybody's imagination. I see all my young friends smiling. There was a government earlier which used a particular section in our constitution, 356, on 100 occasions. To do what? To dismiss legitimate state governments. This gentleman's grandmother used 356 50 times. We have been in power, or we have been in office, Modi ji, since 2014 May. Do any of you remember us ever having used 356? I'm asking you a factual question. Do any of you think we should use 356? Sometimes the individual concerned, proud Punjabi and Sikh like me says, oh my God, we should. Because sometimes I see things spiraling out of control. No, because ours is a system of cooperative federalism. We are constitutionalists. Because the Prime Minister believes in democracy, he's the only Prime Minister of India who, prior to assuming his position as Prime Minister, served for many years as a successful Chief Minister of a state and saw its transformation from devastation on account of an act of nature to bringing it back and making it a successful state. Now, what is democracy? Who is disrupting democracy? I can have a debate with you on that. But let me come back. My answer is India's is the largest democracy, oldest democracy, and I'm adding it's the strongest democracy. We have a few comical figures, I'm choosing my words carefully, who want to go outside India and seek the intervention of the outside world to have a regime change in India. Why? Because he thinks, and he has an uncle there somewhere, who's saying, no, look at what he's saying, he's actually not wrong. Arey bhai, if I ever make a statement, no uncle or aunt of mine comes to my rescue. I am viciously trolled on social media, and because I'm in politics now, I wear it as a badge of honor. So I think people who go outside India and criticize and seek the intervention, I'm using it within quotes, of an outside government ought to be ashamed of themselves.
I think this is the longest I've had an interview talk about someone without naming them. So at least I'll frame it in my question this time. You're talking, of course, about Rahul Gandhi. He's been under fire from the BJP and the government in Parliament for exactly what
I think
you said.
he is going to be under fire from his own party. Let me make a prediction. When you... आप में से पंजाबी कितने हैं? साड़ी पंजाबी च कहावत हैगी है, ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੂੰਹ ਚੋਂ ਕੱਢ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰੋਂ ਕੱਢਾਂਗੀ. Did you understand that?
Maybe little bit, but please.
Well, I'll
explain.
translate it for you. You know, there's a little light-hearted saying in Punjabi that the spoken word says, you utter me, you speak me, and I will make sure you will have to leave the city. Some of the statements he has made are atrocious. And I think the problem is not coming from the BJP. It's coming from his own people. Some who are not saying it in public. They're telling it and say, यार ये कहाँ फंस गए? वो जो भी भारत जोड़ने की यात्रा में कोशिश की थी, वो सारी यहाँ पे यार नुकसान हो गया. पता नहीं क्या जोड़ा था, क्या नहीं जोड़ा था. But you have a problem on your hands. I must say, you have to count your assets and liabilities. As far as I'm concerned, I'm quite happy with how he's acting.
Because he's BJP's asset.
He is BJP's asset. I didn't say it. You said it.
I'm inferring from what you said.
You said it. I didn't say it. I mean, at the very least, the man has what is it called? Manoranjan value.
Okay, but let me seriously ask you. The opposition today, led by Congress Party and by Rahul Gandhi, they say that you have usurped the power of all institutions, including what's happening in Parliament. It's not functioning. Their voices are curbed down. Of course, Rajya Sabha chair has responded to that, that nobody's mics were switched off. But the larger question is, the opposition believes that there is no democracy as it used to be since BJP came to power. Why is that?
मैंने आपको पहले भी कहा कि भारत के इतिहास में एक ही सिचुएशन थी जून 1975 में जब डेमोक्रेसी को ताला मार के कहीं किसी अलमारी में बंद कर दिया था. That is June 1975. Today, democracy means press. Look at what the press is saying. My God. And because we have weak defamation laws, they get away with it. Look what social media is saying. There's no control on what social media says. You can cook up anything against anyone. And as I said, we haven't dismissed any state government. The Supreme Court is as vibrant, as I have to be careful when I use words on the Supreme Court. They're trying to run by metro system. They're trying to, legislate on other areas. Look, we are in a fascinating situation. Because Indian democracy today is the world's largest and the world's strongest, each institution under our democracy, the press, the judiciary, everybody's trying to come into his own. And they will exert themselves, but at the end of the day, the mass is wiser and more constant than the prince. The people will determine. I said in 2019, when people said, 230 aayenge. We did an exercise. How many people are beneficiaries of the different schemes that the Modi government had introduced? And I think the figure was 22 crores. कितने हमारे 2019 के चुनाव में हमारे को votes मिले? 22 crores. And I'm telling you now, this is an election, this is a democratic process where the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, has succeeded in doing one very major thing. He has proved good governance is also good politics. And if these guys continue the way they are, the next election in 2024 will even leave the others. I had predicted 303 in the 2019 election. I'm on record. And I'm telling you, if they continue like this, then apart from the entertainment value, our figure will be even higher than in the 2019 election.
So how much will it be? We are 1 year ahead of 1 year away from the election.
एक साल और 2 महीने रहते हैं. मैंने कहा, if it goes on like this, look, this is an era of numbers. You can quantify the progress. I happen to be the Housing and Urban Affairs Minister, and I tell you the Congress government between 2004 and 14, in a 10-year period, their spend on the urban space, cumulative of all the Kendriya Yojanaएं सब मिला के 1,57,000 crores tha. In the 8 years, because Modi ji assumed responsibility in May 2014, the scheme started in June 2015. In the 8 years, the figure now as against that 1,57,000 crores is 18 lakh crores. So कहाँ उनका 10 साल में ये और हमारा उससे कितना गुना? No matter which way you look at it. Let me give you, they talk about petrol prices. On 2 occasions, 2021 नवंबर में और 2022 मई में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने यह निर्णय लिया कि वो सेंट्रल एक्साइज जो होती है पेट्रोल और डीजल पे उसको कम कर देंगे. और उस निर्णय के कारण 21 नवंबर 2021 और मई 2022 के पेट्रोल और डीजल का दाम 13 रुपए और 16 रुपए रिस्पेक्टिवली कम हुआ. आज स्थिति यह है मैडम कि बीजेपी रूल स्टेट और नॉन बीजेपी रूल स्टेट में 15 रुपए पर लीटर का अंतर है in the petrol prices. 15 rupees in 2 neighboring states. और ये इन्फ्लेशन की बात करते हैं, द रेवड़ी पॉलिटिक्स और लूट मचाई हुई है. And if you look at the actual facts, you will discover the difference between good governance and this thing. Kyun? Because they were not willing to reduce the VAT in their, which is a percentage charged in the state governments. So there's a difference in pricing between 15 rupees and 12 rupees between BJP states and non-BJP states.
Speaking of petroleum, you are the Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, and one of the markers of how India has grown in the world and how India's weight has grown in the world is that the government has handled the pressure that has come its way on buying Russian oil, for example, post the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and you as a minister have faced some of that resistance and some of those questions, that pressure from especially the Western countries. Do you want to share a little bit of how much pressure you faced and how you dealt with it?
Shivani ji, pehli baat to ye hai, I don't think the Modi government faces pressure within inverted commas. I've never heard of the Prime Minister being under any pressure, and I've never felt any pressure. First of all, let me lay the facts before you. India, as a sovereign country, has always exercised the right to source its energy from wherever it can at the most affordable prices. In the last few years, we've diversified the sources of energy from 27 countries to 39 countries. Till 31st March 2022, we bought only very little energy from Russia. Very little.
Yes.
About 0.2%. Why? Because obviously much cheaper to source it from your doorstep, from countries in the Gulf which are next door, or countries which are geographically more proximate. But we also bought, till a few years ago, hardly any energy from the United States. Today we are buying $20 billion of energy from the United States. And yes, our imports from Russia have increased. They have increased simply because the Russian crude which we are sourcing is more economical. And there is no way that I've always said, I was asked by one of your professional colleagues, an anchor in the West, do you have any moral this thing? I said the only moral compunction we have is the duty to the Indian taxpayer and to the Indian consumer. Today, if Russian crude is available, which it became, in between it was more expensive, we started buying more from Iraq. We are playing the market card, and only a government like Modi ji's government has the confidence, thanks to the Prime Minister, of reducing excise. Our OMCs cushion some of the pass-through. Gas prices recently went up by 120 rupees or so. The pass on to the consumer was 1/3 of that. So we are exercising all our options as a large consumer, and we will continue to do that in the foreseeable future. And by the way, the West is not unhappy that we are buying Russian oil. Because if we were not buying Russian oil, we'd be buying more Gulf oil, and then the price would go up further.
So it was more posturing, you're saying?
Posturing or uneducated comments from the press?
Okay. I'll leave that for the Western press to answer. But I want to come back to the question of Indian democracy. It is not just Indian opposition today, Mr. Puri, but also, for example, global think tanks, ranking houses, indices houses, who are consistently rating Indian democracy poorly. And this is not a 2014 trend. This has been happening since pre-2014.
First of all, let me give you a simple explanation. I'm a little older than you, and I've been around a little longer. The entire ecosystem was built up on the patronage of the erstwhile dispensation. What's happened is, funding for some of these institutions came from country X, Y, Z. I'm not going into individual cases. They appointed their fellow travelers and like-minded people to head these think tanks. What happened? The Congress party lost power. Their losing power is not the serious thing. The real serious thing is the expectation that they are not likely to reclaim power. That is the more serious thing. So now all these parts of that ecosystem are running helter and skelter. Now what happens as a process? What is the result? So you're not able to take it on democratically within the confines of the Indian democratic space. So you try and get a needling done from outside from some guy who likes to manipulate the markets to do some shorting. You use some discredited media house somewhere to make a comment. Look, the Indian people are much wiser and more mature. And what you are witnessing here is that you must have a conclave like this to have a discussion on Indian democracy. And I commend you for that.
No, but today we are being ranked as an electoral autocracy. We wonder what it is. My question though,
By
Mr.
whom? By whom?
By these think
But
think
which
tanks.
one? Which one? Let's talk about these think
So
tanks.
this is of course VDem,
Come on. Let's get serious.
Freedom House.
A few days ago, we were being told that there has been perhaps some regulatory oversight missing because XYZ. 2 days ago, I got a statement from the Treasury Secretary telling us about one bank which went under there. Now, where are the banks going under?
In America.
No, I'm just talking about one case. All I'm telling you is that we must have perspective. And as a student of social science, I was taught one very basic thing. That when you take somebody's assessment, and this is the problem with social media. You see, if a newspaper publishes something, you ask, bhai kaun hai newspaper? Iske piche financing kahan se aati hai? Forgive me, but that's it. इसका एडिटर कौन है, उसकी इंटेलेक्चुअल ओरिएंटेशन कौन है, वही खबर किसी इंडियन अखबार में वर्नैक्युलर लैंग्वेज में, हिंदी में, अंग्रेजी में छपी हुई, उसका एक वैल्यू. वही चीज आप सोशल मीडिया में कह दो, उसके 2 फॉलोअर हों पे, उसको भी आप कंसिडर करते हैं. कौन से थिंक टैंक कहाँ है? लेट मी अश्योर यू, इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी इज इन वेरी गुड हैंड्स. इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी इज स्ट्रांग, इट इज रोबस्ट, एंड इट इज द एनवी ऑफ अ फ्यू पीपल. सो यू विल कंटिन्यू दिस.
But my question to you as a former diplomat is that isn't it time that India also publishes some of these ratings? Because, unless you begin to present your story or have your own view and perspective, you're going to be bound to fall back on the Western view.
I am not so sure on that I want to respond. I see my colleague Meenakshi ji sitting there. She also deals with external affairs. I think you should ask the question to that. I want to meanwhile thank you very much.
All right. I want to ask you just a final question on, where we are heading as a democracy. Do you believe Indian democracy is finally closing on being mature? Or is there still time that we will need before all of us can see it blossoming?
Look, first of all, let's be very clear. All terms are relative. Mature, I think we are perhaps one of the most mature democracies. I mean, the term democracy is used very loosely. Why are we one of the most mature democracies? We have elections periodically. Those elections throw up clear verdicts. I mean, at the time of the previous dispensation, we never got any party getting an absolute majority or a clear majority. Here we are getting clear majorities. We have never suspended civil liberties like they did in the emergency. We have never passed other crazy laws. A young leader takes an ordinance cleared by his cabinet and shreds it into pieces in an assembly. In 2009, in Manmohan Singh ji's time, they tried to pass a law which would have severely curtailed freedoms, and the court struck it down. So we have never tried to trample on any basic freedoms. We have a point of view. We reach out to the people through the mantra of development, and as I said, the Honorable Prime Minister has shown that good governance is also good politics. As we proceed towards 2024 and further, I think we are going to go from being the 5th largest economy in the world. By the way, when we were 9th largest economy in 2014 and we came to 5th position, we enjoyed ourselves the most because we had a little bit of fun because we replaced the United Kingdom, coming to 5th place. Now in a few months' time, we will be, or a few months' time or a little later, we'll be the 4th largest economy, replacing Germany. But if you look at all the other international assessment, we are slated to be at least the 3rd largest economy, which is going to be by the year 2040. This is not my prediction, but I think an Ernst & Young prediction, something close to $24 trillion, which is what the state of the US economy. That is the point at which your per capita income will go, and this ability of people to mislead on the basis of freebies will be severely diminished.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, and thank you so much, Shivani ma'am. I now invite Shri Vijay Bhaviskar ji, Group Editor, to please present a memento to Honorable Minister as a mark of respect and honor. इस मंच पर आपके इन ओजस्वी विचारों के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और साथ ही धन्यवाद शिवानी जी का भी उनके पहले सवालों के लिए.